Hello everyone. I'm in conversation today with Mr. Mayank Barjatya, an architect and an expert in Vastu and energy architecture. I'd like for him to tell you a little more about what he does and what today's conversation is going to be about. Mr. Barjatya.
Hello, Devika.
Hello, sir.
I'm an architect. I did my architecture in 1995 and then studied more on the subject, which is called building biology from Germany. Later on, I also studied human energetics, which we call bioenergetics from France, and tried to understand how energies inside the body is affected by the environment and the problems happening outside the body. So in this process, I did my further studies. I gave 3 years to it, and somewhere around 1998, I started a company called Vastuworld. And since then, I am trying to help people, and I am practicing architecture, Vastu rectification science, and also educate people in our institute, which is called Prithvi, where we have more than 200 students now who are learning the advanced architecture and energy architecture.
That is very interesting. Could you tell me a little more about what Vastu is or what Vastu means to you?
See, if we talk about Vastu is a very integrated and a very composite subject. It has a lot of holistic things included in it. It is part of the body, because if we talk about Vastu is a space and Vastu is an object. So when I am having an object in front of me, I call it Vastu. But when I give it a base, it becomes Vastu. Alright? And it is an environment. It is everywhere in the space. And air is also part of Vastu because it is 5 element. So every time we breathe, we take Vastu inside us. So we are in general part of Vastu, and Vastu is part of us. So this is a philosophical side. But for a layman and to people to understand what Vastu is, I will say it's a balance of human energy with the environmental energy. It is composition of your inner self with your external body or with your external reflection.
And what would you say is the need for Vastu Shastra, and how old is the science? What does it date back to?
Vastu Shastra in general is more than 5,000 years old, and it started from the Aryan, when people came from Indo-European system and they came to India, in northwest part of India, certain 100 years before BC. But the whole process of Vastu Shastra started propagating when the physical manifestation happened, and which happened during medieval age, the age when there were palaces and houses actually getting built. Then the scholars started understanding the science behind it, and then the Vedas were written, and the process started off. So I can call it as a very old system. But another part of the question is how it is relevant today, or how it be related to today, is that it is like Ayurveda. Most of the medicine, most of the systems of eating good food is based on Ayurveda and Charak Samhita. We don't understand how old it is, but we still follow it in bits and parts. Similar way, architecture is Vastu. And every day when we are living inside a enclosed wall, we are living inside an environment, we are breathing Vastu. So it is as important as breathing air, or as important as eating food. And if you don't relate yourself with your space or your houses or your workplaces, then there is unnecessary contradiction happening. Then there is unnecessary fight happening between you and your space. And I call it suffering. And according to me, nobody should suffer.
So there is this notion that Vastu is also a concept of time and space. What do you have to say about it?
Absolutely. See, when I say it's a human energetics, we are growing. It's a very dynamic system. And when we talk about time and space, we are also talking about human movement and environmental aggression. So everything is following a certain time frame. And when we talk about Kal, is the stipulated time. So every season, every time frame, every movement of sun and moon, planetary motion, everything is based on certain time, and space is enclosed of time.
What would you say is the influence of Vastu in other cultures, apart from the Indian culture?
See, Vastu is a universal science. It has started from Indian subcontinent in India, because we were the people who were actually propagating the Vedas and Shastras to the whole universe in olden days. So it is a science where every individual who is breathing in this planet is related to it. Apart from your culture, apart from your religion or continent or different part of the world, I say everybody who is living in this universe, including underwater or including in the sky, everybody is part of Vastu, and Vastu affects everybody in different ways.
Could you also tell us a little about how Vastu Shastra has influenced the construction of temples in India?
Yes, absolutely. Vastu Shastra, actually temple architecture is based on Vastu Shastra. It's supposed to be based on Vastu Shastra because thousands of years back when Vastu Shastra was written as a part of the construction text or the science of architecture, they were talking about only making temples and palaces. So the detailed scriptures, each and every manifestation, each and every layer or each and every entablature or elevation or columns or cornices in temple is designed with respect to Vastu. But if you ask me what Vastu has to do with the temple, I'll try to tell you that everything which has a dimension related to golden section or divinity is what we like. So let's say in a human body everything is divine because our eyes have a particular proportion, our nose has a particular proportion, our lips have a particular proportion. That's why we all look good.
Divine ratio.
Divine ratio. That's the golden section 1:1.618. So in architecture, in our Vedic sciences also, they have given certain proportions of temple sizes because temples were of different sizes, different types and different elaborations, Like if you see it, those days temples were of few hundred meters, now you have temples of few hundred kilometers, huge ones. So the scale changes, the time changes, but the basics are same. And that's why I always tell, and I always like to tell people that make your houses like temple, Follow the same detailing, but instead of spirituality, make it more human. That's all. Instead of God, replace your own self. Because you are your own God in your own house.
You also, when you read a lot of articles about Vastu and the importance and relevance of Vastu Shastra, there is this constant term being used called space therapy. What, according to you, what does space therapy mean?
See, when we talk about space therapy, I call it in a different word, I give it a different nomenclature called Vastu rectification. When you are, therapy is treatment or taking care of a space. So when we talk about taking care of space, we are talking about taking care of a human body. So as a Vastu expert or an architect or as a person who understands environment, if somebody calls me to their house, I say, no, I don't want to come to your house. You come to my office, I will measure your energies. Why? Because I want to know about the human body first. So space therapy is secondary. First is the human therapy. Because we are also being part of the environment. We are contributing to the environment. We are, instead of a lot of time taking from the space or from the Vastu, we are also corrupting the space. So space therapy is correction of environment according to the human energies. But human energies need to be understood. So most of the Vastu consultants or Vastu experts try to go to the site, understand the north and south direction, understand the space. They are perfectly alright in their own senses. But I say that is incomplete. Because you need to first understand the person who is living it. Because we don't want to make brick, concrete and cement happy. We want to make people happy who is going to live inside. That's why I studied bioenergetics from France and studied the human anatomy. Because in architecture, 5 years of architecture, we are not taught anything about human body and inside and outside. And I don't wanted to learn what doctors learn in the physical aspect of a heart or a liver or a pericardium or your lung. So in Germany and France, I could learn the energetic behavior of the organs. And that energetic behavior is getting disturbed because of the space or environment. So when we are doing space therapy, we should concentrate on the problem specific to the organ. So let's say if somebody is having a headache in his head, and you go to a doctor and you put a plaster in your leg, what's going to happen? You're not going to be getting a solution, instead you will have more problem. So all the experts and consultants who are working on space therapy or architecture or Vastu consultancy needs to learn the bioenergetics, needs to understand the human energetics, and accordingly they should then treat or give therapy to the space.
You said something about the vitality of north and south directions and stuff. Why do you think these directions are so important, or the positioning of the main entrance of a door is very important in the building design process?
See, it is like, all the directions are important. I don't say north is good and south is bad. I never say that east is perfect and west is not good. Every direction has its own importance. Function of nose and function of ear is different. Nose is facing this side, ear is facing this side.
Yeah.
So, according to the system of orientation, we follow normally sun and moon,
Yeah.
the movement of sun and moon. So, sun rises from east, sets at west. Moon rises from a certain direction, sets at certain direction. So, night and day and yin and yang.
Yeah.
So, we talk about the balance of energies. That's why directions and orientations are very important. So, we have nighttime spaces and daytime spaces. So, daytime spaces are your kitchen, your dining room, your drawing room, your eating places, or your meditation study room. They are daytime places. That's why they should be towards the sun side where sun is rising more. That's why in the directional chart we say north, northeast, eastern section should have the daytime spaces where you want the vigility of sun, when you want aggression of thermal power, because your mind should be awake and functioning.
Okay.
But when we go to the other side of the spectrum, we talk about the nighttime spaces. That is as important as the daytime, because there's a time when you want to rest.
Yeah.
You want to be part of your own self. You want to think. You want to relax. You want to be with your loved ones.
Yeah.
So that's the time is the south side or southwest or southeast side where the sun is less and the moon energies are more. So we talk about lunar flux. So the movement of sun and moon, which is called solar and lunar flux, both are important. So both creates a specific utility in Vastu or environmental energies. And that's why I think next part of your question is how north, south, east, west. I answered it first, but I really want to, in this scenario, and when you ask the question, I want to tell everybody that never ever underestimate power of south. There are a lot of houses, including a lot of my places as well, which has a south direction and south facing, and you get an amazing energy out of south. There is a huge, let's say, mental block with everybody that south facing house is wrong or bad, it is going to be creating a negative things. Builders find it difficult to sell south facing homes, but this is all unnecessary thinking. It is non-scientific approach of understanding directions. As I said, all the directions are good. South has its good things, north has its good things. Similarly, there are a lot of homes which I go to rectify and correct which are 100% facing north, northeast, but they have terrible problems. So how can you say that only north directions are good? You need to understand the internal circulations, internal vibrations. And there are a lot of other factors. So I consider direction as only 5% of Vastu energies. There are so many things involved, and you cannot just delete or not buy a house because it is south facing, because that's only 5%. There are 95% good things inside the house which you are just neglecting because of one mental block. So this is something which I wanted to emphasize more. That's why I spoke more.
Yes. Now that we've spoken about, you've just spoken about homes and personal spaces. What do you have to say about Vastu-friendly industrial sites or offices that should follow a certain
Absolutely.
norm?
So any place wherever we are living for more than 3 months and 3 weeks, the space, it can be an enclosed wall of 10 feet by 10 feet or a couple of meters by couple of meters, your energies are starting getting affected by the space. Similarly, not only residential, industrial spaces or commercial spaces also is part of you, because you are spending 7 to 8 to 10 hours in a space which is vibrating and your body is living there. So commercial and industrial space also holds a very strong connection with your own well-being, and that's why we have specific norms, specific systems of energy flowing inside, people coming in, receptions and facing of accountant, where should be the financial person should sit, where should you have a purchase and sales people, what should be the facing of an industry, what kind of energy flow happening when you have a production cycle, the raw material coming in, finished goods going in. And not only that, the element of the industry also matters a lot. Let's say if you have an industry which is fire based, then the norms of Vastu change according to the fire energies. If there is an industry which is based on water, so water element takes the charge, and then the whole scenario of north-south direction changes, because then we are talking about northeast orientation, because water is the fire, northeast direction is the water element. So if we have an industry which is earth-based, like construction industry or a industry which is having stone and quarries, or you can say plywood industry which are earth-based, then earth industries require strength from southwest and southeast side. Similarly, if you are talking of chemical industry or you're talking about industry which is automobile and software, software and BPOs are a big industry now. So we talk about wind energy because they require growth, they require development, penetration. So wind energy is related to northwest direction. So in this scenario, we utilize 5 elemental theory, 9 directional theory, and the purpose. What is the actual purpose of an office and a house? Or industry. So according to the purpose, then we redefine and remodulate the Vastu, because again, Vastu Shastra was never invented and made for an industry. It was retuned, or it has been reinvented. Because those days, as I told you before, Vastu Shastra was only designed and understood for temple and temple complexes. That was the only purpose those days. But then commercial industrial revolution happened. Commercial things started happening. Then we have BPO. Now we are doing a lot of different kind of businesses. So there has to be a research and modulation of this science. And this is what we are doing in Vastuworld Academy. We are trying to learn every day from our client. Client teaches you what exactly he wants. Because that particular norm is never written in a red book. So again, I am using this platform to tell people that never follow a red book blindly. There are 10,000 Vastu Shastra books everywhere you will find in a station or a railway station or a bus stand or airport. But then everybody is talking different. You need to reinterpret it, you need to follow your own instinct and system and then understand and then try to relate to it. Because following a certain book blindly can be a disaster.
Why do you say that Vastu tradition plays a lot of importance on compound walls for buildings?
See, compound walls are a virtual boundaries actually. They are not, we cannot cut up earth like a piece of cake, this is mine, this is yours, this is, from below everything is similar. Everybody has, from the top, made their own boundaries. So, compound wall actually defines your energy circuit. So, when we talk about north, south, east, west, somebody is north, somebody is south. So, if I am having a north facing house, another person is having a south facing house. So because of these boundaries, we actually divide our limitations of understanding Vastu as an energy. It is like our physical body. We have our boundaries. We cannot extend more than this. If you are extending more than this, then you are doing it artificially. So in Vastu, boundary plays a very important role to limit our scope of understanding energetic behavior and then rectifying and correcting it and balancing it according to what your body needs. So in Vedic science, it is called Patakadi Shachand, which is one of the 5 canons of architecture and Vastu, where we talk about proportions and dimensions. So everybody, I would really like listeners to think about that why do we have a size of your door is 3 feet by 7 feet? Why the bed is 6 feet by 6 feet? Why chair is this particular size? Why do we sit 1.5 feet above the earth and we feel comfortable? So anthropometry, all these sciences of human dimensions are related to the boundaries. And our boundaries are limitation. So let's say if I am put into I ask you, why do you live in a palace? And in a palace, your boundary or your bedroom size is 50 feet by 50 feet. And your bed is, let's say, 20 feet by 20 feet of space to sleep. What do? You will come to a corner, you will shift your bed in a corner, and then use only 6 feet by 6 feet for place to sleep. Rest of the room will be empty, and then you will also not get a good sleep because the space is beyond your energetic dimension. So according to the human body, according to your status and your energetic behavior, your space should be defined. Let's say a farmer who is limited his world to the small farmhouse or a farm needs a smaller house, but the same area, if there is a big person or a mason or a collector or a person who has big industry, he requires a bigger space to live in because his boundary and his extensions are bigger. So again, that's why these limitations of boundaries are very critical. And also boundary defines and stops collisions.
Absolutely.
Collisions and conflict between each and other. So you have your own world, you organize it. Neighbor has a neighbor world, but you are living happily together.
True. Now that we've spoken about boundaries, how would you define a Vastu perfect house?
Oh God, this is a very difficult question because there cannot be a Vastu perfect house. first of all, because it is difficult to design it, but it is wonderful to live in a Vastu perfect environment which is a jungle. When there are no boundaries, there are no limitations, there are no facing issues. You don't have a bedroom, you live in jungles, you live in the trees, and you find yourself comfortable wherever you feel comfortable. So the feeling part of Vastu comes into picture. So I say, yeah, there are homes which people design according to their feeling, but then you have a limitation of building material, you have limitations of spaces. So whenever there is a limit or there is a boundary, then the environment becomes manipulated. So you see that you want a house. So I'm contradicting myself. Let's say a farmer wants to become a king. So he cannot have a Vastu perfect house because he's living in a small farming house. But then slowly he upgrades himself and he changes his house and he become a king. But then that manifestation and that changeover has to result into his living spaces also. So it is very difficult, yes. But a house which to answer your question, the house which is made from your own feeling, made with your own hand, which has all the natural building material, which is vibrating without using artificial building material, toxins and poisons, which has lot of sun and wind energies entering, which has sunlight or moonlight coming in a proper way, which has a Brahmastan center open so that earth is breathing, the house is breathing.
Correct.
This can be a perfect house. So climatologically perfect, healthy, or a house with a proper ventilation and light and energy is a perfect Vastu house.
Okay, so technically speaking, if a house lacks any of these elements that you just mentioned, for example, the climatological aspects of a construction that you mentioned, if any house is lacking that, is there any kind of scope for post-construction alterations? And what role does modern technology have to play, like electronics and different kinds of other modern technology that's made their way into living today? What role do you think that could play?
Okay, so again you have two questions. So to answer your first part, when we talk about modern technology, let's talk about the modern technology part first. When we talk about modern technology, we talk about how as a human being, we have started getting ourselves accustomed to comfort level, which is outside our body, where we require everything on a remote control or a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth, where we don't want to utilize our own senses. That technology is definitely troubling the homes and people in general. So your well-being is considered according to the number of servants or helpers you have, or number of TV and car and number of gadgetries in a house. But that should be secondary. According to me, the primary understanding of human behavioral pattern should be our own self. How comfort we are finding. So comfortability should not be dependent upon the luxury and utilities which you are having. So that system of understanding needs to come back in the scenario of making homes as a perfect homes. And when we talk about houses, when we talk about industries, when we talk about working places, all have their own limitations. But the main concept and the main idea is to, feel comfortable and feel organized. So getting organized, a house needs to be perfectly organized to the individual who is going to be living there. Not according to the gadgetries and technologies and all the aspects of modern sciences. And to find who you are is a big question again. So when I say and when I ask all the viewers and listeners, it is so simple, just answer your own question, what do you want in your house, and make a house according to your feeling. People will ask, how do I feel? What is the definition of feeling? So the whole process has to start from the Vedic system, understanding lifestyle, understanding the pranas, understanding the chakras, and then try to understand your own self. And when you understand your own self, you can make a perfect house. And when a house demonstrates your own self, so a lot of time I go to somebody's house without meeting a person, just by measuring the energies and understanding his space, I can actually write a book about a person. Because your house is a reflection of your own self. So everything house tells me about you. Similarly, when I measure your energies and try to interpret you, I don't have to go to your house to tell you what is the problem in your house. Because your body your energies are telling me everything about your reflection, which is your house. So it is a communication, it is a relationship between you and your space that is most important. And if we understand that well, we are doing perfect things.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That was very interesting advice, very insightful and interesting advice. I think we've all learned today that Vastu is not just an aspect of metaphysics, but it's actually got a lot of science and technology involved, including actions of the climate, positioning of a particular space. We've learned about the concept of time and space, which is very essential for people looking for houses today. So thank you very much, Mr. Barjatya. Is there anything else that you may like to add before we leave?
It was wonderful. You spoke well and you had a very insight questions and very important questions which you asked. But I would like to add another aspect to it. I would really like my listeners and viewers to take this science as a science instead of getting trapped in the metaphysics and spiritual intent. This is not a religious subject. Religion is a part of the whole process of our life. But in architecture and construction, I would really like people to handle Vastu or Vedic Vastu Shastra more, more in a more technical way. Try to get your answers, understand the logical or understand the logics behind it. Never follow anything blindly, because this XYZ Vastu consultant, who is a big name, who has been working since last 50 years, he has done projects for so many people, and whatever he says, I am following it blindly. Don't do that. Ask the question. Your consultant needs to answer everything, and if you are logically and mentally satisfied, then only go for changes. Another answer which I think missed out in the last question is, never do a breakage, never post construction, never do destruction to rectify houses, because destruction is always negative. You should never break a single brick to Vastu correct. The first thing you should do is, if you are making your house, make it Vastu perfect from the day one. But if you have done a mistake, then don't regret. Don't get disheartened and troubled. Go to a right consultant and get a solution which is based on remedies and bioresonance systems. So, without breaking a single brick, you can actually rectify and get the same results, what the perfect Vastu house is going to give. So, follow the systems, go to the right consultant, try to understand it scientifically, and be good to your own self. That's what I would like to end with.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was very nice speaking to you.
Wonderful, Devika.
Thank you.